Hi everyone, welcome to Studio Jake. I, of course, am your host, Jacob Airy. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I talk pop culture, comic books, movies, books, anime, all kinds of stuff. So be sure to subscribe, and don't forget to ring that little bell because YouTube is doing this weird thing where they're curating your subscription. I don't know if you know about that, but you don't actually see things in chronological order anymore. So you might actually miss something. So ring that little bell. That way you get notifications for when I do live streams and upload new episodes. And today I have a returning all-star guest. She's probably my most frequent guest ever. You know her. She writes for Athens Now and for the Washington Examiner. She is none other than Rosemary Dewar. Rosemary, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me back.
So, and also, if you want to follow Rosemary, I have her Twitter right there at rlindy1. So be sure to head over and follow her for all great stuff. She shares out her articles all the time. Be sure to give those a read as well. So today, Rosemary is one of the few conservative millennials who like Ben Shapiro and comic books. So, or at least comic book things. I don't think she collects like I do, but she knows pop culture. She understands comic books. So I wanted to have her back because we're going to be talking about the Dark Phoenix film and the Batman. Dark Phoenix film, of course, will be directed by Simon Kinberg in his director debut. It'll be the first movie he's ever directed. I think after, because Fox fired Bryan Singer. He was originally slated to direct it. Of course, we all know about his alleged misconduct. And then, of course, Matt Reeves is taking on the Batman. And we're going to be talking about both those films. We're going to kick it off talking about the Dark Phoenix. So, Rosemary, I'm going to pitch it to you now. This is just my personal take. I watched both of the trailers, and the first trailer really disappointed me. It seemed like they were copying X-Men 3, which was the second worst X-Men film, but just with better special effects and maybe a better origin for the Phoenix as opposed to being a brain aneurysm as it was in X3. But then they did the second trailer, which I saw when I went to see Captain Marvel. By the way, head over to my blog. You can see my review of Captain Marvel. And the second trailer is way better. It seems like they actually had some of the stuff from even the X-Men animated series. I saw a whole bunch of Easter eggs in the trailer alone. So I'm curious, did you watch the trailers? And if so, what did you feel about them?
So I did get a chance to watch both trailers, and I have to agree with you. The second one is a lot more earthy. It does make you want to humanize Jean Grey, and you're sympathizing a lot more with the conflict that she's dealing with. And it is like a complete redo of Last Stand. They are trying to fix all the timeline inaccuracies and taking Dark Phoenix into that type of storyline, which is really interesting on how it melds in with a lot of other films and the anticipation of newer characters that we haven't seen yet.
And I'm going to put this out there is I think too. Now, like I said, this is Simon Kinberg. He's primarily a screenwriter. He's written for a lot of brilliant films, including in the X-Men franchise. And I'm going to actually, now that I didn't know this when I saw the first trailer, I didn't know it was his first director's film, or his film as a director. So I'm going to maybe grade it on a curve when I actually go to see it, unless it's like, The Room or something. But but the only reason I'm saying that is because, I've written 2 novels now. My first novel I'm really proud of, but my second novel is way better. So I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt when it comes to this, because a few people, like I remember when X-Men Apocalypse came out, I thought the pacing was the problem. A few people said, oh, they just thought it was an awful film. It was one of Brian's. I just thought the pacing was off, and if you get past that, I actually enjoyed it. So I feel like maybe this is Fox. They're trying to do, because they've been bought out by Disney. That deal is almost going through. And I feel like Dark Phoenix is kind of like their last stand. This is our last big franchise film before the mouth takes over. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it's like there has been a lot of different types of staffing changes when it comes to the merger, and it's like it even kind of like vision shifts for what they're wanting to do with Marvel, and the possibility of finally having X-Men crossover with some of the other Marvel films is something that, I mean, they've obviously been trying to do even with Fantastic Four. They just haven't had the capability to do that in a coherent and artistic way that carries well. And so I'm thinking that with this merger that we have talked about in the past, that there is going to be some changes that will allow other types of storylines to develop in a way that, I mean, we'll have Marvel films forever at this point. There's so many different storylines you can play with now, and yeah, I think Dark Phoenix is a good solid storyline for them to continue X-Men with.
And a lot of people who are unfamiliar with the comics, don't realize that during the X-Men versus Avengers crossover event, there was an issue where a lot of mutants lost their powers. I believe that something like because of a situation with the House of M crossover event, when they got out of the House of M, something like, I want to say in the comic books, I remember like 75% of mutants lost their powers. And in the spoilers for the storyline, but in the Avengers versus X-Men, the Phoenix actually restores the mutant powers of all the mutants who had lost their capabilities. And so what I'm wondering if with the merger, if that will, because people have been asking, well, how's the MCU going to bring mutants into the franchise? They've already brought Inhumans in, so how are they going to do that? And this is kind of a little bit off topic. I'm going to get more on topic on the movie itself, but what do you think about that possibility? You think that maybe if the Dark Phoenix is successful, they can maybe use the dimension thing and bring the Phoenix as an entity into the MCU, and that's how mutants come about?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we're still dealing with the crossover of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. So they still have to make that coherent. It's like even with different dimensions that they have. So in all the multiverses that they're dealing with. So at the same time, it's like, again, there's so many other characters that need to cross over in order for stuff to work well. I mean, stuff like Wolverine and Spider-Man, in order for again, those are some really interesting storylines that can develop if this goes well. And it's like, and if they play their cards right, I think the audiences will beg for it.
And jumping back onto the Dark Phoenix as itself, I've heard a few people say that they weren't too much fans of Sophie Turner as Jean Grey. I think she did all right. I mean, obviously, what's her name? Who played her in the first trilogy? Her name escapes me. But Famke Janssen.
Yeah.
Yes. Obviously she is a better actress than Sophie Turner, but as a young Jean Grey, I thought Sophie Turner did all right. Do you think that she has kind of? I know she comes off of Game of Thrones, I believe. I've never seen Game of Thrones. I don't know anything about it, but do you think that she could pull off like this big, emotional, strong, alien-driven plot? I personally think she'll do okay. What do you think?
I think it's definitely possible. Her character in Game of Thrones goes from kind of like being this, kind of like an airy pawn in everyone else's hand till the point that she gets pushed to the edge, and she's like, nope, no more crud. I'm with my sister. You guys can just shove it, kind of, and if you don't like it, we'll end you. And I think that type of like inner intensity is something that they're building up to, and which, I mean, we'll obviously see in this film as she's dealing with Phoenix within her. But I think she is capable of carrying it. Again, it's like I still put a lot of onus on writers to do that. Actors can only do so much with what they've been given, and but yeah, I think she is capable of carrying it.
And, one thing, too, it's also going to depend on Cyclops, because we have James Marsden, who played him, in X-Men. And what's kind of funny is Cyclops has always had like a love-hate relationship with the X-Men fans. Everyone kind of just sees him until recently. I remember growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s, Cyclops was just a character that you just kind of loved to hate. He was kind of like, you know, because he went through so many, you know, he had a problem keeping his emotions in check. And really, I feel like X-Men The Last Stand leaned into that a lot. Like and of course they killed him off. Spoiler alert, I don't care. It was an awful movie. You shouldn't see it. But
Right.
but then in X-Men Evolution, they actually made his character cool. I don't know if people are familiar with that, but it was an animated series that came out right after, I believe, the first film. It's not related to the films at all, but that they actually made the character cool. He's like a young leader kind of in training. And then I feel like Ty Sheridan, who plays Cyclops in X-Men Apocalypse and will play him in X-Men Dark Phoenix, I feel like he does a good job of capturing that cool side of Cyclops. And like I said, since a storyline called X-Men Schism, which is a fantastic storyline, I really feel like Cyclops, they've kind of redeemed Cyclops as the character, so he's not so much of a loser figure anymore, and it's been building up into recent times. So I think that one thing I really like is Ty Sheridan as Cyclops. I think he'll do, and because everyone knows he has a deep connection to Jean Grey's character. Mm-hmm. And do you think that for this film, because it is kind of going a different track than the comic books or the animated series, do you think that will be a necessary component?
It's like when it comes to Cyclops, he's integral, especially when especially if you're bringing in Cable from Deadpool. It's like you can't have Cable without him. So it's one of the cool things about this is the amount of what's building up even after Jean Grey, which is something that's people are not really people who are not fans are not calculating yet. And again, it's like when you're understanding what's kind of going on in the entire MCU, you know what's coming, kind of. But yeah, you have to have Cyclops. I'm glad he's back. The way he was ended in Last Stand, I'm like, not cool at all. So I'm glad to have him back. It's like I've never had a hate relationship with his character. There's always that time where he's just kind of like, he's a cool sidekick-ish thing. But now, especially with Dark Phoenix, it's like he takes a very head role, and it's like, and even what happens between him and Professor Xavier in the future, it's absolutely necessary that he's back.
And I always thought when for a while during the aforementioned X-Men versus Avengers, which I actually have a graphic novel review of on my blog, if anyone wants to search that, but he took on a more villain role in that series, and I don't see them doing that in any movie franchise. I just don't, because I think people are kind of getting tired. I didn't like Logan. I was just tired of, is Professor X a good guy, or is he a good guy who does bad things, or is he just a gray character? I think people are kind of tired of that back and forth. It works for a character like Deadpool, who's kind of amoral, but when you have characters like Professor X and Cyclops and even Wolverine having to kind of make those Clint Eastwood good, bad, the ugly decisions, I think when you have too many characters doing it, like, again, it's fine for a character like Deadpool or Wolverine, but when you have too many characters doing it, you kind of go, man, is everyone nihilistic?
Right. And I think that's one of the things that Infinity War suffered from, is you have a lot of people who have their own agendas that refused to communicate, and on top of which had this sense of urgency that was kind of contrived. So it's like if everyone just kind of waited, there wouldn't have been any tension in the movie whatsoever. I do think that a clear delineation of good and evil is way more compelling than just saying, well, we have to make this decision now, and then that's supposed to propel drama that's supposed to happen 20 minutes from now. It's like that's really kind of boring, and that causes a pacing problem. So, but yeah, it's like if they change the way that they choose to frame characters, I think they'll have a better shot at it.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And like I always, I know that I'm a lot of conservatives, because we are conservatives, we tend to think, oh, well, storytelling has laws. Now, as a storyteller, I don't think that's true. I think storytelling has guidelines. You know, they're more like guidelines than actual rules. But I don't think that that they're laws or rules. However, I think that sometimes, depending on the story, they should be adhered to. And I feel like you were saying, when everyone is nihilistic, then there really is no villain. Because I remember I wrote a really negative review about Polar and on thedailywire.com, and it's a Netflix action thriller. Don't see it; it's a waste of time. I wanted my minutes back. But one of the things about it was it's just there were no one to cheer for in the film, and a few of the responses I got were, "You don't understand, it's a nihilistic film." And I'm like, well, what's the point of making it then? Because it just ended up being, nihilism doesn't work unless it's a comedy like Seinfeld. And one of the things I like about the MCU is they've tried to stay away from the nihilism. They're like, okay, we're going to give these characters something to fight for. And I felt like Logan and maybe even X-Men Apocalypse a little bit were kind of drifting into that, oh, well, nothing really means anything. And so, and hopefully with Dark Phoenix, though, this is a turnaround from that, and they'll get it back on track.
Definitely. I feel the same way about that. But
and we're gonna change a little bit, still on topic of movies. Dark Phoenix, of course, coming to theaters soon. I will be there, and I imagine Rosemary will. I'm not sure when I'll see it, but I will eventually take a gander at it because I'm such a huge X-Men fan. X-Men is actually probably just for everyone's FYI. I don't know a whole lot of the X-Men's history, like Batman, Spider-Man. I'm like a walking encyclopedia of information. X-Men, I came really late to the game. I didn't get into the X-Men until the 2000 films. So that's how. So when people say, "Well, didn't so and so do such and such in this storyline of 1976?" and I'm like, "I don't know, maybe." But right. so that's why it's a little waffly. But we're into, like I said, walking encyclopedia of information for Batman, and we have a new film coming up, directed by Matt Reeves. They're in the casting phase. They haven't announced who is going to play the Dark Knight. Names have come up, have been Scott Adkins. He recently had an audition tape leak. My understanding was the audition tape wasn't exactly for the Batman. It was for a previous film. I think that didn't actually get made, but Warner Brothers obviously kept it around. It got leaked onto YouTube, and and the rumor is that he's still in the running to play the part now that Ben Affleck's gone. But so Bradley Cooper, who I really can't see, Scott Adams, John Hamm has been said, and I can't remember the other. I can't remember the other person.
There's Armie Hammer as well as Milo Ventimiglia, and I'm like, I can't see any of those guys playing Batman. None of them.
I can kind of see Armie. I can kind of see Armie Hammer playing him. I think a lot of people got a bad taste in their mouth about him after Call Me by Your Name, because it was just such. Yeah. It was such a pro-pedophilia film, but it was still kind of like. But I'm kind of, well, if you look at his history before that, I can kind of see him playing Batman. But no, I do see what you're saying. And you actually wrote a piece for my blog, a guest post about Scott Adkins. So tell a little for people unfamiliar, what is your reasoning behind your Scott Adkins possibly being the Batman?
So some of the things that I brought up about that article, and we had mentioned Scott Adkins last year when we were talking about Batman, and when we were hearing some of the rumors about Ben Affleck saying goodbye. It's like one of the biggest reasons why I enjoy Scott is because his skill level is already there. There's so much you already don't have to teach him. And one of the things that's very integral about the manner of Batman is because he is skilled in martial arts so much. And that's one of the things that I know everyone enjoyed about Christopher Nolan's Batman. So, and it's like I know that Scott has the capability of embodying someone who is dealing with inner trauma. It's like when he doesn't have the bat suit on. So, and, but again, it's like there's so many things that I think that he can bring back to Batman that I feel like Ben Affleck completely washed out. And, but yeah, it's like I like the skill level that he has. I like the manner in which he could possibly carry Batman. And it's like, and I think his previous roles give him the ability to morph into Bruce Wayne / Batman. But yeah, I would. It's like for me, the leaked tape was more like a market test for me. It's like they've had it around for over a year, and he ended up putting out a social media video. It's like we all know that they're not going to make me Batman. Blah 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 blah. I'm like, well, not with this one. From what I hear about this new Batman that's coming out, it's another origin story. They're going back to young, so they're not going to need an actor who's 40 something. They're going to need an actor who's 30 something or 20 something. So it's like they don't need you now, but if you're going to move back to the future with the Justice League, they're going to need someone like you. So we'll see what happens, what they choose to do with the story again.
And if you could drop 2 other names, who would you name drop to play Batman?
So it's like if I had to choose some of the younger actors that are capable, I'd probably say Aaron Tyler Johnson, who's the older Quicksilver. Right. And if people don't think that he's suave enough to play Bruce Wayne, it's like watch him in Anna Karenina. He's perfectly fine and suave in that. And then I would probably also say Taron Egerton from The Kingsman. I think he's capable of. Yeah. So
I've never thought about him. I could actually see that.
It's like in his recent, Robin Hood, that's like super action packed. It's like we can work with this. This is possible.
Yeah, for mine, I would definitely say I've already mentioned Armie Hammer, but I would say Brett Dalton, who was of course played Agent Ward and later the head of director of Hydra. I would suggest him. And now that he's done at Marvel, a lot of people thought he was going to come back during the Framework storyline, but he didn't. So I think they're pretty much done with him. In fact, when they did an episode where they unlocked this like darkness dimension where like aliens would appear as what they feared most. But Ward appeared, but it was his Hydra form, his hive form. So the actor didn't actually appear as it. So I'm kind of like, oh, well, I don't think he's going to come back. Number 2, I would say Mike Vogel with him. He played Lee Strobel in The Case for Christ, which is probably one of the best Christian films ever made. And that's saying a lot. And also he was in a TV series called The Brave that only lasted 1 season, where he played the leader of an elite squadron of soldiers that worked for the Defense Department, and they would go on special missions like rescues and stuff. So those would be, he's a little older, maybe a little older than what they want, but I could still see him being Batman. So now another thing that has come up, the only confirmed villain has been the Penguin. Of course, we saw him in the Danny DeVito Batman Returns. He was supposed to be in the sequel to The Dark Knight that was never made because of the death of Heath Ledger. He was originally supposed to be slated to be in that one. The second one and the third and the fourth, because they have confirmed that there's 4 villains, we don't know. We have no idea who these other villains are going to be. And a lot of people are thinking, well, maybe because it's Penguin, we might see a Killer Croc appearance, because in some comic books, Croc will sometimes act as the muscle for the Penguin. I'm curious. I would like to see Hush. I would like to see, but to me, Hush deserves his own film. But if we're just guessing, I would like to see Hush. I would like to see Croc. And if we're going, I know this is very, very controversial. I would like to see Professor Pig maybe as a side villain, maybe not as a main one, but just someone who's like, he has like a subplot. He obviously doesn't play well with others. But I would like to see those would be my 3 additional ones. Rosemary, do you have a couple of picks you'd like to see in this film?
Yes, Hush was definitely on the list, and then one of the other ones a handful of the other ones I'd like to see. I'd like to see Prometheus. I'd like to see a Dark Mirror type of theme when it comes to Batman, and then I do want to see Mr. Freeze reintroduced because I was like, I'm sorry, Schumacher. It was just so neon. I wasn't able to fully enjoy it. And then I'd also like to see Black Mask back.
Oh yeah.
And if I could absolutely have my way, I would have Phantasm in there, and then actually have Andrea Beaumont come in and have that type of origin story again. That would be so incredible for them to do, but that's a high hope. But that would be.
Well, you never know. I mean, Harley Quinn started off as a character from Batman the Animated Series, and so you could possibly say Phantasm. Black Mask is slated to be the villain. That movie sounds awful, just from what is leaking out about it. Like, it has this really long subtitle about Harley Quinn that just makes no sense. I'm a little excited because Cassandra Cain is supposed to have an appearance in it. She's one of my. Barbara Gordon is always my favorite Batgirl, but she's definitely the second favorite. So I'm really excited about that. No one really knows if she's going to be Batgirl or the Orphan. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Or Black Bat. She went by Black Bat for a while. No, that's probably politically incorrect now. So I'm really. I'm not really. Don't have a whole lot of high hopes for that. But back to the Batman. There was apparently before Affleck, even before Affleck was like attached to the Batman. Apparently, you were talking about Black Mirror. For those of you familiar, Black Mirror was actually a story where Dick Grayson is Batman, but it's very much like a serial killer haunting. It's more horror than comic book, quite frankly. It's like a horror story with Batman. Brilliantly written. I didn't really care for it because I'm not a huge horror fan, but it is objectively, if I take my fanboyishness out of it, it's actually really well written. But anyway, apparently Warner Brothers had approached James Wan, who directed Aquaman, about doing sort of a Batman horror film, and when was still going to do it, he kind of like laughed it off, like, you know how directors do. So we could see something like that. But Matt Reeves, I actually like his directing. I thought the Planet of the Apes reboots were good. I haven't seen the third one, but the first two I liked. I think he did a good job with those. What do you think? I haven't really seen much outside of those films, so I've seen a couple of things here and there, but nothing that makes me go, oh, he can't do it, or yeah, he'll blow me away. What do you think?
Yeah, there's not a lot of blow me away on it either. It's like even his direction in Let Me In, which is like a vampire type of thriller. Mm-hmm. But it's like, again, he does have the good dark grit trope down, and I mean, it's Batman. You have to have that, period. And I think he has properly melded and formed that part of his artistic vision, and it's like that will work for Batman. It's like when it comes to Planet of the Apes, though, I don't know. We'll see how he deals with the drama of it, and seeing how he can. It's like again we're dealing with a brand new young Batman, so it's like there's a part of at the very beginning with the Wayne's family. There's a very glamorous thing happening there. And it's like, and you have to feel like you actually lost something. It's not just you lost a mother and father in a traumatic way. It's like it's an entire city who has lost a backbone of their society, and so it's like that's something that he does have to calculate for. And I don't know if the writers are taking that into consideration or not. But it's like similar to trying to connect with the character of Jean Grey in the Phoenix. It's not just that Bruce Wayne has lost his parents, it's affecting an entire community, and you have to feel like you're actually losing something.
And what do you think with, because Warner Brothers, according to Batman News, which is it's a real website, they follow up on. I love them. They follow up on all the gossip about what's going on with Batman in television and animation and live action films. And according to them, Warner Brothers has given up on trying to make not necessarily like a connected franchise, but they have said we're going to focus on standalone films. We're not going to take integrated franchise like Marvel has anymore. We're not going to do that. The films could be related, but maybe not necessarily. And how do you think that will? Because originally the Batman was supposed to be take place right before Batman versus Superman, and then they's like, oh no, it's a prequel. It's from years before, and it's going to have Deathstroke as the villain. And then now it's like, no, it's going to be a standalone. Do you think that even though kind of the Dawn of Justice timeline is gone, do you think it'll somehow still be connected, like to Wonder Woman and Aquaman and Shazam somehow?
It's like, well, I think Warner Brothers' decision to do that is really lazy. I mean, it's like everything is already written there for you. Like the timeline is already there. The characters are already pre-developed for you. And there's not a lot that the writers have to do. And I think it limits Warner Brothers to kind of make like non-canon films just for fun. And
well, that's what you have with the Joker, right?
Right, exactly. So it's like I think they're making the mistake of just using a name for bucks, and then I think what they're going to end up doing is similar to what's going on with X-Men now. You're going to be fixing former stories in order to make a new one, and it's like you have the capability to make sagas, and you're throwing it away simply because you can't find actors that you want. You can't find writers that are neutral enough, but are enthusiastic enough about the original characters to keep them going. And I'm sorry you guys can't get it together, but to me, just like to quote Deadpool, that's just lazy writing, and I don't like it.
Right. And I always thought that they should treat Batman like James Bond. So, do like 5 films with one actor, and maybe not necessarily call them all Batman 1, Batman 2. So like do Batman, then Long Halloween, or Dark Knight Detective, or I'm just naming off all these random Batman storylines, because I think that would make more sense. And then if you decided to, oh, well, we want to do a connected franchise, just bring in who's ever playing Batman in those other films at that moment. I mean, I always thought that, and no disrespect to Burton, who I like the Batman and Batman Returns. They're great films, but I feel like bringing in Tim Burton to direct those movies, I feel like that, and then bringing in Joel Schumacher afterwards, that kind of offset that possible course. So now they always have to look at Batman in the context of what are we doing right now with Superman or Green Lantern or Wonder Woman. And really, Batman has carried, I mean, not during the 60s, obviously. He had terrible writers during the 60s. But when he kind of came back in the 80s and the 90s, when DC was close to bankruptcy, it was Batman and I guess the death of Superman that really brought them back. And so I really feel like people credit Neil Adams and Frank Miller for reinvigorating Batman. And so I would suggest, if an exec from Warner Brothers is watching me converse, that is what they do, treat him like James Bond. What do you think about that as a filming strategy?
I do think that takes the pressure off trying to hook an actor for 10, 15 years in order to get a storyline completed. And it's like, I mean, I think that's a very good move. That way you're not stuck. And it's like, and you're not trying to jump through hoops when it comes to production. I think that's a very good move to do it that way.
And also, too, if there's one thing that Warner Brothers has proved, is the public never gets tired of Batman. People are kind of starting to feel like maybe Iron Man and Captain America fatigue because they've been in so many films, but they're retiring. That's why they're bringing in Doctor Strange and Black Panther and Captain Marvel and Spider-Man. So I really feel that, but if anything, the public with Batman is one with mistakes like Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, because even Batman, even as bad as Batman Forever is, Batman and Robin did really well at the box office the opening week. It didn't shatter any records, but it did really well. And then, of course, it was a second week bomb. But the first week they made money. It wasn't like it wasn't. And even the same with Ben Affleck. Even after people criticized Batman versus Superman, people still came to see the Justice League. And even though that movie was just kind of okay, it proves that the public interest in Batman has never died down. I have this working theory that Batman is kind of America's Robin Hood, that Bob Kane and Bill Finger kind of made like an American myth that hadn't really been done before. And that's just my opinion. But do you think that's true? Do you think that it's like if they do the James Bond things and they pace them out 2 years, like that's what they do with Bond, unless their director gets fired, they pace them out every 2 years, basically. Do you think that people would get like Batman fatigue from that?
Again, if the writing is good, they won't. It's like it's like if the story is compelling and the deviation between good and evil is clear enough, people will never get tired of good winning. Never. They will never get tired of it. That's why we're watching all these Marvel movies over and over again, and it's like blowing up. We like this stuff. And it's like, and our generation likes this stuff, and the next generation does. It's like, we're not going to get tired of superheroes. So just write them well, please. None of this mamby-pamby, you know, like you said, everyone's a nihilist. It's like, that's not entertaining, ever.
Right. Exactly. And we'll have to wait and see, because like even Venom, which critics hated, the audiences loved it. You know, it was and even Aquaman. I believe National Review, who I have a great respect for National Review, but they have terrible movie reviewers again. They called Aquaman an ear shiv, and it's just like, well, you know, and now you wonder, and then like I've said this like 4 times on Twitter. I'm aggravating people, but I say the more I see, especially right-wing bigwigs badmouth comic book films, it makes me wonder less and less why we can't get any young people into the conservative movement. Yeah. But you know, that's a political topic. We can talk about that another day. Back to the Batman predictions. Do you because a few people were. One of the reasons a few people were getting concerned because there was a report that it's just rumors and gossip. But there was a report that they said that maybe they were going to try to echo the tone of Suicide Squad, which Suicide Squad is basically a big toy commercial. You know, it's an hour and 45-minute long toy commercial. It's really, you watch it once and it's enjoyable, and then you want to move on with your life. But and so a few people were concerned about that, but I can't really see Matt Reeves making that kind of picture. What do you think? Do you think that that's maybe just gossip and people just work, or do you think that, man, this could be a real threat to the film?
I mean, stuff like that always sounds like a market test to me. They want to know what people want to see, and I think people want to see Suicide Squad redone.
Yeah. Well, they already had James Gunn, so.
Yeah, it's. I mean, like, well, it was technically already redone after the trailers came out, and then they recut everything with the same guys who did the trailers. Right. So, I mean, people do want to see a relationship between Harley Quinn and Joker. It's like on some level they do want to humanize Joker, and one of the biggest issues is because we have all these anti-heroes, it's like unless they make a clear delineation between what Batman does and what Suicide Squad is, again, you're going to have a nihilism problem that's not engaging at all. So it's like I think people want to see it. It's like I know so many people who are fans of Deadshot. I'm like, just go ahead, try. That's the best thing I can say is try. Don't not try. But yeah, I'd say I think it needs to be redone. I think it would be, I think it would do well as long as it can stay true to what it's supposed to be instead of making it into something nuanced. I think it's possible. I think it would be a decent film to watch again.
And it's true because like I don't think you can have a nihilistic film with Batman because one of the I remember and this is what all the great writers of Batman have caught on to is in Batman Year One and this is also in the animated film. So if you don't want to go back and read the graphic novel, go check out the film. Bryan Cranston is the voice of Commissioner Gordon. Benjamin McKenzie, who plays Gordon in Gotham, the TV series, he voices Batman. So there's this scene where Gordon, after he sees like all this horrible corruption in the police department, and he goes home and his wife is asleep next to him, and he says, "What can I do?" I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he says, "What can I do in a city without hope?" And as soon as he says that, Batman runs by his window, and I think that the brilliant and Nolan caught on to this too with Dark Knight trilogy is Gotham is a nihilistic place, but Batman is that hope that Gotham can be better. And I hope that Matt Reeves picks up on that. So, any final predictions for the film?
I mean, again, this is they've turned it into an origin story all over again. It's kind of like everything's up in the air. Right. But if Matt, one of the only concerns that I have with Matt Reeves is the influence that he has with J.J. Abrams, and I was like,
mystery boxes.
Yeah, so it's like, don't do J.J. Abrams. Let J.J. do J.J. Don't try and mimic his stuff. Don't try and it's like Matt Reeves has his own vision, obviously with Planet of the Apes. So, stick to your art. Don't try and accidentally mimic something that JJ might have taught you. It's like let him do his stuff. It's like start your legacy here. It's like you have a great potential to do something really, really awesome. Don't mess it up. Oh God, don't mess it up.
Exactly. And now we're going to turn to a little bit funner. And I want to thank Rosemary because this is an extended episode. And I told her, said, hey, just so you know, we're going to be covering 2 big films that are coming out soon. So, and she was, as usual, a good sport. She's like, yes, let me come on. I want to do this. So thank you for staying on for this extended episode. One thing with that I had wanted to talk about is now, I don't think Batman, I'm not one of these Batman purists who think Batman can be everyone. I think if he maybe comes up with a strategy, he could eventually. But one of the things, since we're talking about the Dark Phoenix and Batman, was I said, if Batman had his Hellbat armor, which actually defeated Etrigan and Darkseid, or helped defeat, I won't say exclusively, but it was a part of the plan. So Etrigan the demon, and then Darkseid, who's like as powerful, if not more so than Superman. If he had the Hellbat armor, could he fight and potentially defeat the Dark Phoenix? So what do you think about this?
My answer is no.
Okay, well, tell me why. Tell me why.
So like there's like the characteristic of Dark Phoenix, the Force itself feeds off life. It's like in order to completely kill it off or defeat it, you would have to basically get rid of the entire universe, and that's not possible. It's like his confrontation with Darkseid is it's like he doesn't just use his armor. He's like, I'm going to end up using your own army against you because I hacked you, and it's like we'll all just die if you don't just quit. So it's like technically he didn't beat him. He's kept him at bay long enough to be like, it's like I've got your number, dude, and I will call it. I will call it. And it's like, I mean, because he technically didn't defeat or eliminate Darkseid, you can't 100% defeat Dark Phoenix. You can keep it at bay. You could maybe figure out what exactly it wants. But because it's a pure force that needs hosts, I'm not sure if there's a way to fully eliminate it entirely.
And that is true. In fact, when in the aforementioned spin, I think it was Iron Fist punched the Phoenix Force, and it hurt it, but all it did was split it into 5 pieces, and that's what caused, I believe, Cyclops, Namor, Colossus, Magic, and I can't remember the 5th one, but 5 of the X-Men got possessed by the Phoenix Force, and then every time the X-Men, or every time the Avengers defeated one of them, they would get more powerful. So you're right, the Phoenix Force obviously would continue to heal itself eventually. So that's a pretty good case. Believe it or not, I'm actually going to agree with Rosemary on this. While I'm sure that I'm pretty much convinced that the Phoenix Force possessed Jean Grey could even defeat Superman, because all the Phoenix Force would have to do was cut off his connection to the sun, any sun. So that would of course give Jean Grey the edge. So there's my logic on that one. Now it is time for our curveball question. This is where I ask just an out of nowhere question based on the topic to my guest. It was so funny because like most people go, oh yeah, but then I asked, I had Samantha Sullivan on 2 episodes ago, and I asked her, and she was like, oh, I know the answer right now, and she gave it to me. So here we go. If you were to play an X-Men character, which one would you pick in the Dark Phoenix?
Oh, in the Dark Phoenix. Oh my God.
Yeah, I got super specific.
Right? I mean, heck, it'd be fun to play Jean Grey just for the heck of it. But honestly, I mean, this character isn't even in there yet. But it's like even with the Phoenix is supposed to be in the future with Hope Summers. Like that would be fun because you still have Cyclops, and that would be very interesting to play. But man, I can't think of another character that I'd want to play in there. It's like, I mean, maybe if there's a female Beast, I would play that. That would be a lot of fun too.
Yeah, Beast is a great character. Apparently, Beast was rumored because they introduced Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch into the Avengers in Age of Ultron, and there was a rumor that they were going to try to snatch the Beast from the X-Men because during the 80s, I believe, the Beast became an Avenger. He was a member of the West Coast Avengers, and he was actually during the 80s. It's kind of funny because my dad was into comic books in the 80s, and so when he was actually confused when he saw the Beast in the X-Men in X-Men 3, he was like, wait, isn't because he's been out of it obviously. He's like, wait, isn't the Beast an Avenger? And I was like, no, Dad, he's an X-Men. He's one of the founding X-Men. And he was like, oh, I remember he was in the Avengers. So, it's like, no, Dad, that's not the case.
Yeah. Oh, one other question. One other question that we do need to cover. Who is it? Whose funeral is it?
Oh, that's right. Whose funeral is it? Because
I have a theory, but
tell me your theory because I have a theory too. Tell me yours.
I think it's Jean Grey. I think this is her ending.
So you think because a lot of people think it's Mystique. But you're saying no, it's Jean Grey.
No, because I don't think it's Mystique because Mystique is still needed in order to bring Hope Summers around, and Cable's already here. So right. It's like I think this is the ending of Jean Grey simply because in Last Stand, if they are redoing Last Stand, it's like Jean Grey's got to go, and it's like in there, it's like somewhere in there, there's supposed to be another antagonist that's a clone of Jean Grey. And that's how Cyclops ends up. It's like, and that's how you get Cable. So my theory is Jean Grey is going to die, and there's going to be another antagonist where there's a clone. So it's like, and the secondary antagonist is not the one that's presented in this film. So that's a possibility for something else. But that's my theory.
They would actually connect because in the post-credit scene of X-Men Apocalypse, when there's this corporation that raids the Weapon X facility, it's called the Essex Corporation, and that of course is Mr. Sinister. who is responsible for the Jean Grey clone. So I think she becomes the clone, turns evil, and she starts using her powers to manifest like these demonic creatures. Madeline Pryor, that's her name.
Yes.
And so we could that's actually a very good theory, because I don't think it's Mystique, not necessarily for the same reasons you do, but Mystique is just such a well-known X-Men character. I can't see them just kind of lackadaisically killing her off. What I'm wondering is, if you look at the people in the funeral, if it's not a villain, like maybe one of the bad guys dies. I don't think Magneto is going to die, but I'm wondering, because I'm honestly wondering if maybe the funeral is, because movies do this a lot, where they'll introduce a character that you think is going to be a main character, and then they end up dying. That's what they used to do in Star Trek, right? They would introduce a character like, oh, this character's kind of cool, and then that character would die.
Right.
And so I'm wondering if they're going to try to use that old TV show trick, so that way they don't have to kill off any of the main characters. So that's my theory on it. I just think maybe they'll probably pull in some X-Men character like Cannonball or someone like no one actually cares about, and then they'll kill off him or her. So, but we'll have to wait and see. One thing
if your theory is right, I owe you $1.
I could be totally wrong, because you make a good case for it being Jean Grey, and that's a good point, because one thing about the X-Men, there are so many freaking characters.
Yeah.
You can do 4 movies in a row and totally change the cast, and and it would all be the X-Men. It would all make sense. So. I mean, there's characters that we haven't even seen yet. Like, for a while in the comic books, Professor X is killed off. Of course, then he's just trapped by the Shadow King and all this nonsense. But they have another character who's mute, I believe. I think his name is Portal, and he kind of becomes like the mentor of the group. And his power is he can open portals. So that's to explain how the X-Men get everywhere so fast, was through his portals. So I'm wondering, you could easily do a whole line of X-Men films just with those obscure characters that no one cares about or has heard of.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Rosemary, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all at RLYNND1. I come out with Athens Now articles every other Friday. And every now and again, you'll see me contributing to the Washington Examiner again.
And of course, you can find me on Twitter at RealJacobAiry. Instagram is RealJacobAiry. No dots anymore. I took out the dots just for you. And my Facebook page is author Jacob Airy. You can find my blog, jacobairy.blog. Of course, I've got like a ton of movie reviews on there right now, so definitely head over, check those out. And of course, you can get your copy of my fantasy novel, The Seven Royals, All Good Things. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, available for download at Kobo, iTunes, and also for your Nook and Kindle on Barnes & Noble and Amazon, respectively. And it's also on booklocker.com. They have both editions, the PDF and the paperback. So definitely get your copy of that. Once again, be sure to subscribe, like this video, share it out, and I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.